Africa. And Dr. LMadu, let's see if we can pick up where we left off before the first commercial break. You were talking about some of the issues dealing with mine pollution and in Africa.
Like I was saying before we left, in the Niger Delta of Nigeria, the issue of pollution, has really gone past common sense. Like I said before, oil was founded in 1958. Till today, those who live in those communities are completely marginalized and don't even have access to pure drinking water, education, you name it. Their livelihood is completely destroyed, over 20 million strong.
20 million people are caught up in that kind of trap.
Caught up in that trap.
Can't go anywhere, really.
That's correct. They can't go anywhere. Okay, all they know is fishing, majority of them. And because of these oil spills, they can hardly fish. So a lot of them are starving. Now, you talk of unemployment. There's almost 60 to 70% unemployment in those places. Now, the military government that has run that country, since 1966 to 1999, hardly did anything for the people. In fact, they were siphoning the oil from Niger Delta to the northern part of the country to develop it. So you find out that those who own that oil are not benefiting anything from it. Fast forward, that's how we came to the Saro-Wiwa, case. Saro-Wiwa is from Ogoni, and he was executed because he stood up and said, look, we are tired of all this, okay? Shell BP, you either pay up or get out of our land. You cannot come here, take the oil, destroy the environment, and ship the money somewhere. I mean, just an example, in this country, Alaska has, what you have, the highest per capita income because of the small population and the oil. Those who live in Alaska won't allow you to take that oil to develop Tennessee while they're suffering. I mean, you understand that. But in Nigeria, it's the opposite case. Now, that's the reason why Saro-Wiwa spoke up and was executed by the military government, for standing up.
They actually killed him because he was talking about...
Exactly, yes. Saying, look, our environment is destroyed and we are not getting anything for it. Something needs to be done. Either Shell pays or leave our land. The army said, no, this nonsense, and clamped down on him. And eventually, some, intelligent folks, some lawyers in the United States brought a lawsuit against Shell BP in U.S. courts. There is an act called the 1789, TOS Act, in the United States, a law. That law specifically allows foreigners to sue in U.S. courts for violation of international law. So that lawsuit was brought against Shell under that act, the 1789 TOS Claim Act. Eventually, Shell did not admit any, wrongdoing insofar as Saro-Wiwa's execution is concerned and all that, but agreed to pay $15.5 million, to those who brought the lawsuit. And this happened in 2009. Part of that money will be given to, a trust, the Ogoni Trust. Part of it will be given to, those who filed the lawsuit, and part of it will be used to pay
the lawyers.
Exactly, the lawyers who brought this suit. So Shell, in a way, admitted, that I didn't do any wrong, but who will pay? Where does this leave us? The fact of the matter is, all the blame is not on Shell BP or the mining companies. A lot of these mining companies, better Shell BP and the rest, try to help those communities. But then, like most things in Africa, you have a lot of corrupt, greedy politicians who pocket, some of these funds meant for those communities. In some of those communities in the Niger Delta, Shell has tried to, build some schools or roads or give money, but some of the politicians there embezzle funds meant for their people.
Meant for the schools and the communities.
Exactly.
They siphon it off.
That's correct. Yes, no accountability. Fast forward, that's how you have MEND, Movement for the Emancipation of the Niger Delta. This is a guerrilla, group that took up arms to fight the Nigerian government because he feels you know, the people in the Niger Delta have been mistreated and abused. They are still fighting up till now, even though it's low intensity, but there's still violent conflict in the Niger Delta. The Nigerian government has tried to, you know, negotiate with them by granting them amnesty, having them being trained in a non-violent, you know, this. And in fact, one of our friends here, Reverend Bernard Lafayette, who was president of the American Baptist College, is one of those who've been training them, you know. But yet they're not satisfied because they say, look, we need more from Shell, BP, and whomever is, you know, Chevron and the rest who are mining here. That's not the only problem. The money is not equitably shared, and it's not being used to clean the environment. The Nigerian government has said that from 1970 to 2000, 7,000 oil spills. That's what they acknowledged. But environmental activists say, no, we have about 300 to 400 spills every year. Okay? Now, 1970 to 2000 is about 30 years, 7,000 oil spills. Were they cleaned? You could hardly say that because it's still up to there. Now, I have been there myself, and I've seen those oil flares. In fact, if you go to Ogoni or Port Harcourt, any of these places, you will see that flare.
Well, that means that oil just automatically just fires up and starts to fire.
That's correct. Continuously, 24 hours round the clock. In fact, at times when you are there, you think it's day, at night, because that oil continues going up. So what are the poor people going to do? It's unregulated. So what is another reason why this happens? A lot of the equipment that these Western companies use in drilling in Africa are equipments that will not be acceptable here under any circumstance. You know, under any circumstance, it will not be acceptable here. It won't be acceptable in Europe, but still they use them in Africa.
And buy it and sell it in Africa.
Exactly, they still buy and sell it in Africa because these equipments are so old. Oil keep leaking from those pipes.
And of course, Dr. LMadu, let's take this second commercial break, and we'll come back and continue our conversation. But that's essentially what we wanted to receive from you, some information relative to what really is going on dealing with mining companies and Africa, and especially this environmental pollution that not only impacts Africans, but it impacts the world in a real sense. And we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break.